We learned today that actress Diane Keaton has died in California. She was 79 years old. Keaton's family made the announcement but did not specify a cause. As CBS's Ali Bauman reports, Keaton's self-deprecating grace.
And we go back a long way, Diane and I, but from the minute I met her, she was a great inspiration to me. She's much of what I've accomplished in my life.
Thanks for being with us here on Live Now from Fox. We do have some breaking news that we want to get to here on this Saturday. You may recognize her. She's a famous actress and producer there in Hollywood.
Yes, I'd have to go through all the many regrets in my life and the many
privacy issues, abortion issues, an enormous amount of pressure.
For 50 years, Woody Allen built his reputation on fiction, stories sharp enough to hide the truth inside them. But the one story that mattered most was never on paper. It lived quietly, just out of frame, shaping everything he created without anyone realizing. It began long before the scandals, before the fame, with a woman who refused to be directed. Her name was Diane Keaton. She wasn't just his muse. She was the one person who saw through the act. The laughter, the irony, the detachment. She could strip it all away with a single look. And maybe that's why he kept her close in every way he could, on screen, in memory, and between the lines of his films. It was 1969, and New York was noisy, nervous, and alive with possibility. Woody Allen was 33, already known for his quick wit, but still a comedian trying to prove himself in film. He was casting a Broadway play called Play It Again, Sam, when a young actress named Diane Keaton walked in wearing mismatched clothes, talking fast, smiling too much, and ignoring the careful rhythm of his audition room. From the start, she didn't behave like anyone he'd ever worked with. She laughed at her own lines, made jokes that had nothing to do with the script, and somehow made the entire room feel lighter. Allen, who built his life around control, found himself disarmed. Later, he said she was adorable and completely original, but what he meant was that she felt real in a world that often didn't. He hired her immediately, not just because she was right for the part, but because he wanted her near him. Within weeks, they were inseparable. They'd meet after rehearsals at small Manhattan diners, arguing about music, art, and nonsense. She'd tease him for overthinking everything. He'd correct her grammar just to make her laugh. Friends noticed how different he seemed around her, more open, less anxious, almost happy. For Diane, Woody was fascinating in his contradictions. He was brilliant but insecure, confident on stage but painfully shy in private. She once said he reminded her of a kid pretending to be an adult. To her, he wasn't the genius everyone described. He was simply Alan Konigsberg from Brooklyn, still trying to figure out how to belong. When Play It Again, Sam opened, critics loved it. The chemistry between them became the heartbeat of the show. On stage, they played a pair of awkward lovers, and offstage, that awkwardness quietly became real. By the time the play moved to film, they were officially a couple, though neither liked labels. It just happened, Diane would say later. For Woody, she was more than a muse. She was proof that someone could love him without explanation. For Diane, he was both teacher and puzzle, someone she wanted to understand but never quite could. What neither of them realized was that this imbalance, the artist and his muse, the controller and the free spirit, would become the pattern they could never escape. Living together revealed how different they really were. Woody loved structure, the same breakfast, the same route to work, the same quiet hours to write. Diane thrived on chaos. She'd dance while cooking, rearrange furniture in the middle of the night, or buy flowers just because they looked lonely. For a while, that difference felt romantic, two people balancing each other out. But over time, it became a quiet tug of war neither could win. Woody's affection often came with correction. He'd suggest what she should read, how she should speak, even what colors she should wear. He didn't mean it to hurt. It was how he showed care, by trying to improve the world around him. But for Diane, who'd grown up feeling overlooked, it started to feel like another version of invisibility. Friends who visited their Manhattan apartment remembered an odd mix of tension and tenderness. They'd argue, fall silent, then laugh as if nothing had happened. She'd call him kid, he'd roll his eyes, and then they'd go right back to editing lines together. It was love, but the kind built on imbalance, one person teaching, the other resisting. Then came the call that changed everything. Francis Ford Coppola was casting The Godfather and wanted Diane to audition. Woody didn't think it was the right move. He told her gangster films weren't her type, that she'd be better off staying with the projects they were developing together. But Diane had already made up her mind. She took the audition, got the part, and left for California. When she called to tell him, Woody went silent. "You're choosing them over us," he finally said, half joking, but not really. That silence stayed between them. For Diane, The Godfather was a door opening to a world she'd never seen. New people, new energy, a chance to grow beyond his shadow. For Woody, it felt like a betrayal, as if she were rewriting the story he'd been directing all along. When she came back months later, everything was different. She was more confident, more self-assured, and far less willing to be molded. He could feel the shift. The girl who once looked up to him now stood eye to eye. Their relationship didn't end with a fight. It ended with exhaustion. The quiet kind that comes when love turns into something you have to defend. And yet, neither of them could walk away completely, because for both Woody and Diane, what had started as love had already become something deeper and much harder to define. 5 years after their breakup, Woody brought Diane back, not into his life, but onto film. In 1977, he started writing a story about a nervous comedian and the woman who made him feel alive. He called it Annie Hall. To everyone else, it was fiction. To Diane, it was déjà vu. He didn't even try to hide it. The character's name came directly from her. Annie was Diane's nickname, and Hall was her real last name before she changed it. The film's wardrobe, her own clothes. The loose ties, the vests, the oversized men's shirts, those weren't costume choices. That was Diane. Woody told her to bring whatever she'd normally wear, and she did. When people on set asked if it felt strange, she said no, but she smiled the way people do when they're hiding something. It was clear what he was doing. He wasn't directing a movie. He was reliving their relationship through a camera. The awkward arguments, the nervous humor, the mismatched affection, all of it came straight from real life. Even the way the film ends, with two people breaking up but pretending to be fine, felt like his way of rewriting their story. He made the heartbreak look poetic. In the film, love fades with grace. In real life, it had faded with quiet disappointment. But Woody had always been better at storytelling than feeling. Through Annie Hall, he turned their pain into something the world could applaud. The movie became a phenomenon. Critics called it a masterpiece, a new kind of romantic comedy that felt honest and human. Woody won Best Director, the film won Best Picture, and Diane, the woman who'd once been his muse and his heartbreak, won the Oscar for Best Actress. She stood on stage that night, holding the golden statue, while Woody sat in the audience watching. She thanked him, smiling, but didn't say his name directly. He smiled back, and that was it, the closest thing to closure they ever got. Years later, he admitted to friends that Annie Hall wasn't a love letter. It was an exorcism, he said. He wasn't celebrating her. He was trying to purge her, to turn something messy into something beautiful. But art doesn't erase real life. It only freezes it. And even after that film made them both icons, they couldn't stop orbiting each other, on screen and off. They never got back together, but she never really left his work. Even after the romance faded, Woody Allen and Diane Keaton kept crossing paths on screen. It was as if their connection refused to disappear, only changing shape. After Annie Hall, they drifted apart personally, but continued to orbit professionally. He'd write roles that seemed built for her, and every few years she'd return. Not out of nostalgia, but because something between them still worked. Their rhythm was easy, instinctive. She could read his scripts like shorthand, knowing what he meant even when he didn't say it. When they reunited for Manhattan Murder Mystery in 1993, it felt less like a comeback and more like closure. Two old friends finishing a conversation that had been paused for decades. On screen, they played a married couple rediscovering adventure. Off-screen, they were rediscovering an old comfort. Crew members said the chemistry was effortless, the timing precise, the warmth real. Friends close to Woody said he compared every actress to Diane. No matter who he worked with, Mia Farrow, Scarlett Johansson, Cate Blanchett, none ever matched her. She was the benchmark, the ghost in every film. Not because she was flawless, but because she understood him in a way nobody else did. The public noticed it too. Critics called them cinema's most unlikely soulmates, saying their creative energy felt more intimate than romance. Whenever they appeared together, audiences felt a sense of familiarity. a reminder of something they couldn't name but always recognized. Diane, for her part, had stopped trying to change him. Their friendship had become quiet and enduring, built on respect, shared history, and the rare knowledge of who the other once was before fame hardened the edges. On set, she steadied him. When he grew restless or unsure, she'd cut through the noise with a simple look, and he'd listen. In one rare interview, Woody admitted, "She's the only person I ever directed who directed me back." It wasn't about power, it was about trust, the kind that outlives everything else. Their bond had evolved from love to understanding, from passion to partnership. But time has a way of testing loyalty, and soon that connection would face its hardest test yet, not through love, but through controversy. By the late 2000s, Woody Allen's legacy had shifted from admiration to controversy. The same industry that once called him a genius now called him something else entirely. Old accusations from the early 1990s had resurfaced. Claims from his adopted daughter, Dylan Farrow, that he had abused her as a child. Allen denied it, and 2 separate investigations at the time found no charges. But when the Me Too movement swept through Hollywood, the story returned with force. Suddenly, the man once celebrated as one of cinema's greatest storytellers was being publicly erased. Studios dropped him. Actors who had once praised him began apologizing for ever working with him. Awards shows stopped mentioning his name. In a matter of months, Woody Allen had gone from cultural icon to outcast. And through all of it, one name kept appearing beside his, Diane Keaton. She didn't owe him anything. Their romance had ended decades earlier. Their friendship had survived time, fame, and distance. Yet when almost everyone turned away, she didn't. In 2018, while Hollywood was disowning his films, Diane posted a single sentence that stunned the industry. "Woody Allen is my friend, and I continue to believe him." 13 words that divided a career built on warmth and charm. Overnight, she became a target, labeled naive, complicit, even dangerous. Directors stopped calling. Colleagues stayed silent. But Diane refused to take it back. In interviews, she said she was proud of her work with Woody and proud of their friendship. It wasn't defiance for attention, it was loyalty, the same kind that had defined her for half a century. When asked about her in private, Woody reportedly said, "She didn't have to defend me. I never asked her to, but that's who she is." He knew her support came from understanding, not denial. She had seen him at his worst and best and still believed in the man she knew, not the headlines written about him. But loyalty always comes with a cost. For Diane, that cost became a shadow over her final years, a reminder that in Hollywood, defending someone can be riskier than condemning them. Still, she stood firm, not out of rebellion but faith in her own judgment. And when her health quietly declined in 2024, Woody had no idea. They had spoken less often, their calls shorter, their laughter rarer. Yet even then, the thread between them never broke, because some loyalties, once chosen, never fade, even when the world demands they should. On October 11, 2025, Diane Keaton passed away at 79 after a sudden battle with pneumonia. The announcement came quietly through a short family statement. No public farewell, no spectacle, just the kind of exit she might have wanted. For most of Hollywood, the news felt like a shock. For Woody, it felt like the air went out of the room. In recent years, their calls had grown less frequent, shorter, softer, and full of those pauses that come when people know each other too well. He hadn't known she was sick, he just assumed, like always, that there would be more time. At her small private funeral in Brentwood, he arrived alone. Witnesses said he looked frail, holding a worn black and white photograph from Play It Again, Sam. The two of them mid-laugh between takes. When the service ended, he slipped away quietly, leaving the photo among the flowers. A few days later, he published a short tribute essay, a rare public note from a man who'd spent a lifetime hiding behind words. In it, he wrote that Diane had been the most singular person I ever met, and that she changed my life without ever trying. But there were other words he never shared. According to one close friend, he wrote a private letter he never sent. Part apology, part confession. I should have just loved her the way she was. I tried to make her perfect and lost her instead. After her death, people began rewatching their old films. Annie Hall, Manhattan Murder Mystery, Play It Again, Sam. Scenes that once felt like comedy now carried a kind of grief, as if the two had been saying goodbye long before they ever knew it. Those close to him said the change was immediate. His writing slowed, his public appearances stopped. For the first time, Woody Allen looked like a man out of words. Because what started as a director losing his actress ended as a man losing his compass. In a career that spanned 6 decades, Diane Keaton never followed Hollywood's script. She wrote her own. From Annie Hall to Something's Gotta Give, from The Godfather to First Wives Club, she built a life out of contradictions. A romantic who feared commitment, a beauty icon who hid behind turtlenecks, a superstar who never chased stardom. She made imperfection magnetic. She made restraint feel rebellious. Every performance carried that same signature, honesty. Not the kind that begs for attention, but the kind that sneaks up on you, a quiet truth that feels lived in. Her characters were never flawless, but they were always real. Nervous, self-doubting, curious, endlessly searching. In Diane's world, women were allowed to be messy and magnificent at the same time. That, more than any award, was her revolution. You could see her influence ripple through the decades. In the vulnerability of Meg Ryan, the humor of Meryl Streep, the openness of Emma Stone. Actresses often said the same thing. She made honesty fashionable. Her style, too, became part of her mythology. Oversized suits, gloves, hats that hid as much as they revealed. It wasn't costume. It was armor, identity, declaration all at once. For younger filmmakers, Diane represented freedom. She proved that charisma didn't have to shout and that beauty could coexist with awkwardness. She showed that aging could be graceful, not by pretending to be young, but by owning every year with humor and curiosity. Even Woody Allen, in his later interviews, admitted that she remained the truest performer he'd ever worked with. Through her, he learned that comedy could be emotional and emotion could be funny. She blurred those lines long before critics had the words for it. After her passing in 2025, retrospectives filled film festivals around the world. Clips from Annie Hall played beside her later work. And the through line was unmistakable. That unfiltered laugh, that instinct to turn awkward pauses into poetry, she never lost it. Film historians began to call her the bridge between old Hollywood and modern realism, a performer who carried the grace of Katharine Hepburn but spoke with the vulnerability of the 1970s generation. In a town built on reinvention, she stayed entirely herself. And maybe that's the secret to her staying power. Diane Keaton didn't just play characters. She gave audiences permission to be one, to be awkward, hopeful, unfinished, human. That's the kind of legacy you don't measure in box office numbers or awards, but in echoes, the quiet ways her presence keeps resurfacing in others. Even now, in his late 80s, Woody Allen is still writing, but no longer for the audience. He writes notes, fragments, single lines that trail off halfway down the page. Friends who visited say his apartment feels like a museum of moments. A typewriter that hasn't moved in years, film canisters labeled in his handwriting, and photographs of Diane Keaton stacked between old scripts. She's everywhere, even in the silence. After Diane's death, friends noticed something different in him. The sharpness in his voice softened, the humor stayed, but the armor fell away. Whenever someone mentioned her, he didn't flinch. He just smiled. "I got lucky once," he said. "Most people don't." He rarely leaves home now. His world has shrunk to a few rooms, a few memories, a few ghosts that never learned how to leave. He still writes, but the words come slower, smaller, as if even the sentences are running out of breath. When asked what keeps him going, he once answered, "Habit, and hope I don't embarrass myself trying." But those who know him say it's something else, that he still wakes up imagining one more conversation with her, one more chance to get the words right. For decades, he tried to direct life the way he directed movies, with control, with edits, with endings that made sense. But Diane Keaton never fit that frame. She lived outside the lines, unpredictable, impossible to rewrite. And in the end, that's what she left him, a story he couldn't control, and therefore, the only one that ever felt real. If you look back at his films now, the pattern becomes obvious. Every woman he wrote after her carried a trace of Diane, the nervous laughter, the sharp honesty, the unguarded curiosity. It's as if he spent 50 years trying to find her in dialogue, in camera angles, in the pauses between words. Maybe that's why so many of his stories end the same way, not with closure, but with someone walking away and another person just watching. Because for Woody, the camera was the only place he could keep her from leaving. Even his harshest critics admit something quietly, that without Diane, his work lost a certain heartbeat. The humor remained, But the warmth dimmed. The irony deepened. She was the color in the frame. He was the shadow around it. Together they made something whole. Apart, they made sense of each other only in retrospect. That's what makes their story so haunting. Not what happened, but what never stopped happening. Diane Keaton's death didn't expose scandal. It exposed something quieter. The truth that even a man obsessed with control can't script love or loss or the people who change us forever. For 50 years, Woody Allen tried to hide that truth in fiction. But fiction has a way of telling on its creator. Watch the films closely. The awkward glances, the unfinished sentences, the moments of hesitation. And you'll see it. Not guilt, not mystery, just a man still in love with the woman who refused to be directed. Because some stories don't fade when the credits roll. They just keep replaying, in memory, in film, and in the spaces between what was said and what never needed to be.